Okay, so before I begin, can you make sure that you have read back over the extract from The Tiredness of Rosabelle as we go through question 4? So, question 4 is your longest question on the exam. So you've got obviously the 4 mark, then you've got the 8 mark, then you've got another 8 mark, and then you've got the question 4. And question 4 is 20 marks. That's a quarter of the paper. Because the paper is out of 80 marks. So what I have a tendency to see when I'm examining, the biggest issue that I have a tendency to see is that kids spend lots and lots of time on question 2 and question 3. And sometimes you'll notice that actually their question 3, especially question 3, because it's not a language analysis, which you're more used to because you do that a lot in literature. What they'll have a tendency to do is for question 3 they spend loads of time on it and they've got about 2 pages written down, and then for question 4 they've got 2 paragraphs. So that becomes a bit of an issue when you're examining. So the main thing that you need to do when it comes to question 4 is just making sure that you're very clear on what you're trying to say, and how that links to the statement. So the statement here is, a student said, this part of the story, set in the hat shop, shows that the red-haired girl has many advantages in life, and I think Rosabelle is right to be angry. So we're only focusing on lines 19 to the end, and one of the biggest things I get asked is, Miss, can I just start from the beginning? No, you can't. You have to focus on lines 19 to the end. Now, that doesn't mean you can't reference a few things. So you might say, overall the story is negative, blah blah blah, but you're not using any quotes or anything from the start of the source. You have to go from lines 19 to the end. So then it says, to what extent do you agree? Now what this means is you need to actually interact with the statement. So I personally don't see a lot of interaction. So the majority of answers I get, people don't interact with the statement. They don't tell me how they're responding to the statement, what their personal response is to the statement. So what I normally start off with is thinking about what the key parts of this statement are. So this part of the story, set in the hat shop, shows that the red-haired girl has many advantages in life, right? That's the first thing. Okay, so they're basically giving you something to prove here. They're giving you your argument, you just have to prove it. Do I think, reading this, that the red-haired girl has many advantages in life? Well, yes, I do. She gets to sweep out to a carriage whilst Harry pays for her hat. She gets to choose her hat, whilst clearly Rosabelle is finding it a bit of a struggle to go over, to sort of go through all the hats and find her a hat. So clearly this red-haired girl, the juxtaposition, the contrast between her and Rosabelle, she clearly has a lot of advantages. So I'm going to say, yes, I agree with that. So that becomes my first part of the answer. Okay, so my first sort of paragraph or 2. Firstly, I can agree with the part of the statement that says that the red-haired girl has many advantages in life. So that would be my sentence starter. Okay, so if you're struggling, you can write that down. That's my sentence starter. I agree that the red-haired girl has many advantages in life. You can see there from that sentence starter that I'm interacting with the statement. Okay, the next thing that I need to do is make sure that I'm proving that the writer has specific intentions for this. Okay, so this was the writer building this on purpose. So I'm making it very clear that the writer has done these things on purpose, has conveyed this impression to me on purpose. So I would then say the writer has created this impression through. And then I will give examples of what's going on, okay? So methods. Methods means anything. So techniques. So perhaps techniques like adjectives. So are there any positive adjectives to describe the girl? Is there anything interesting about the way she's described? So the fact that she's beautiful, that's a positive adjective. That's an advantage in life. To be attractive is seen as an advantage in life. The fact that the man that she had come in with was well dressed. So again, we've got more adjectives here that show that she's at an advantage in life. So that's the first thing I look for. I look for methods. I look for techniques that show me that. And there might be more description as well. And it doesn't just have to be a technique like adjectives or similes or metaphors. It can be things like dialogue. Okay, so dialogue, that's a key word that we use in English, because remember, subject terminology, which is on your mark scheme, and I talk to you about it all the time. Subject terminology is anything that's a key word in English, and dialogue is a key word to English. Okay, dialogue, plot, characterization, all these things. The girl is characterized as, yeah, the dialogue shows me this. So these are all key words that you could be using. So what I would do is I would go through and I would start looking at ways that the girl is seen as sort of as having an advantage in life. The next thing I would do is use the rest of my time to look at both the other part of the statement and sort of forming my own conclusion from this. Okay, so remember, it's an argument here. That's what it is. To what extent do you agree? That means it's an argument. And you don't have to argue for it, against it. You can argue a bit of both. It's up to you. So the next thing, and I think Rosabelle has the right to be angry. Now, personally, as a reader, I don't necessarily think Rosabelle has the right to be angry, but I can understand why she's angry. So that's my personal response. But I'm still engaging with the statement because I'm still taking into account what the statement has said and how I've interpreted the text. So I would say I understand why Rosabelle is angry. And remember what I said before, she's walking around, she's trying to please the girl, even though she will never have the things that the girl has. And I would talk probably about the fact that she tries on the hat and it suits her beautifully. And Rosabelle will never have that hat. And the fact that that's sort of like almost symbolic of this lifestyle that Rosabelle can try on for a second, but then has to take off, you know, so I'd look at symbolism there. However, I don't think she has the right to be angry at the girl. So I would say, I think she's angry at the situation. She has a right to be angry at the situation, but not a right to be angry at the girl, because I would look at the way the girl is described. You know, we've got the positive verb smiled. We've got the fact that the girl compliments her with the adverb beautifully. You know, this isn't necessarily that the girl is a bad person. She's just advantaged and perhaps not that aware of how she might be making Rosabelle feel. So then I would come to my own conclusion to whether, and then I would sort of summarize how I feel about the statement personally as a reader. Okay, because then again, in that little conclusion, I'm just showing how I can interact with what's being said here. So with this question, I'm clearly interacting with it. So that's what I would do. That would be my aim. And then that becomes a 20-mark answer. Okay, so if you explore that really well, if you zoom in on that, you know, you've got quite a decent mark answer there, and you would be going up into higher bands, okay, because you're zooming in on words, you're explaining the effect on the reader. So that's question 4. So if you take what I've said, I've given you some sentence starters, I've talked you through how I would approach it. If you take that example and try your own question 4, then we can go through examples of question 4. We can go through examples of question 4 and what I would do for question 4. And here's a little cameo from my dog. There we go. We will do examples of what I would do for question 4 in the next video, in the next lesson. Okay? So have a go at question 4 and then upload it for me to see.